Good afternoon, everyone. Happy Wednesday. Another Wednesday Wisdom chat live. Again, I still have to say that very slowly or I will get tongue tied. It's still Black History Month. And bringing you some more topics that are centered on our Black experience here in the workforce. I am very happy to have with me today Akwasi Peprah. Let me just say this. I had another guest that was supposed to come on and they just disappeared. So I put out a call and I was specific in wanting a Black man to talk about the topic today, and you'll see why. But Quasi stepped up to the plate at the I don't know what they call that, but just at the last minute, like literally brought the fire extinguisher and put it out. So I'm very, very thankful and grateful that he decided to join me today. But let's get into it. So who is Quasi and why is he important to be on the show today? He is the Vice President of Partnerships Global and the Global Head of Revenue and Growth for Pharma Technologies. He may or may not talk a little bit about that. Also, an HBCU graduate. He went to Alabama State. And any Alabama A&M folks who are watching, still clap for him because, we're all family. Has based out of both Atlanta and the Bay Area, San Francisco. A self-proclaimed girl dad to two daughters. One is in college, the other is in her junior year, and perhaps she'll choose Alabama State as well. But yes, again, very happy to have him. Has started his career in places like IBM and Cisco, and then started doing some awesome startup work. But yeah, I'm very happy to have him here. So Quasi, is there anything else you wanted to say or add or any shout outs you wanted to give?
No, I think you said it all, but thank you very much. I'm excited to be here. I think it's a very good and important topic. And today, share some of my journeys, whether I was the early days at IBM and Cisco or moving to Lever Data and then
Okay.
basically at Pharma today.
All right, great. So, as you saw on the advertisement or the promo for today's show, I want to talk about professionalism through a Black lens, and specifically through a Black male lens, because a lot of times when we are, trying to pour into people, when we're trying to give, for lack of a better word, advice and things, we kind of center, the female experience, the Black woman, the Black young ladies. The Black professional experience. So I definitely wanted to, because I am, a woman, I definitely wanted to have a man to figure out, if we're having the same experiences, where those nuances is. And then just like I said, like give the gentleman a voice and kind of center them. And you guys have heard a lot of things on this broadcast before. So it was important to bring in a new voice and talk about this specifically. So Quasi, when you think about professionalism, like how do you even define that?
Yeah, professionalism can be defined in multiple ways. The way I look at professionalism is basically communicating effectively and appropriately while
Okay.
being productive at the workplace. So starting at that level. It also can morph into treating your manager, your subordinates, your colleagues, your vendors, and your clients with respect.
Okay.
And also projecting a positive attitude at work, and then also showing good judgment. Finally, is
Show
basically how
good
I.
judgment. I now that's one that I want to stay there because
Yes,
as I was thinking about things and really going deeper and not just, what you're wearing,
yep,
you know,
yes,
if whether or not you say the N word, whether or not you curse at work,
yep,
whether or
yep,
not you use slang, and folks
yep,
know from one of
yep,
my previous blog
yep,
posts or something like I was being open. I was given a trap confession, and I talked about an interview I had where I got so comfortable and I allowed myself to be so disarmed that as we were talking, I used like colloquialism, like AABE, actually just Philly talking. I was like, blase, blase. And I did all of this. And I was like, and then when it registered that I said that, I almost like melted. I see. But what you just said, there are times, there are things that are appropriate for certain things. So
Yes.
um,
Yes.
I think we're around the same age, or at least in the same generation. I think we're both
Yeah.
Xers.
Yeah.
And there were a lot of things that we were
Yeah.
taught specifically about professionalism. Um,
Yep.
and if we were to say those things today, online, like a lot of people be like, "You're anti-black,"
Yeah.
you're
Yeah.
you're adhering to white people standards, and we're like, huh?
So
So
professional.
yeah, like how much of that is actually um true, and how much of that is, like you said, kind of situational, kind of as it relates to the organizational culture or the or where you are in that moment and things like that.
So I think it evolves as you talked about. I see about 20 years ago, 15, 20 years ago. Think
Okay.
about somebody come out of school with braids in his head as a guy. I had
Yeah.
a friend, a very close friend, very smart guy. But every time he went to a room, I think there was a lot of uncomfortableness. So what would happen is
Oh,
that this was 15, 20 years ago. And so what this person, I realized is that they're trying to get promotion. Literally, he had to cut his hair, get a promotion, and then basically grow it back up, then kind of hit it. He did it twice. And I kind of saw that journey. I think that has evolved. Today I see people with braids in boardrooms and things
yeah.
like that. So if you think about that evolution, that is a critical thing that we typically would see. But I would say that I think when I go back to basically treating people and looking your best, I think if you show up to work without a shirt iron, you walk in there, it's not a thing. Like for instance, I wear these things, right?
Yeah.
It's something I just like to wear. And I walk into meetings and I feel comfortable to be, and you should be able to do that, represent yourself. But I
Yeah.
think you also have to balance it out in terms of your
Yeah.
audience. And it's very important because you don't want to just show up, okay, we're going to a formal thing, you show up in shorts and it just throws it off and you are the only one
Yeah.
isolated. So I think there's a balance there.
Yeah, I definitely like that because again, like I was thinking about things and I was like, you know what? I maybe it's organization, maybe it's based on the organization. And that was one of the things I was going to, I wanted to ask you, like, is that professionalism, the way that we present, the way that we communicate, the way that we dress, is that really based on, so should it solely be based on the profession and or the organizational culture?
I would say generally yes. And the
Okay.
reason why that is important is that it's important to understand the organizational culture and
Mhm.
how best to work into it. And I always tell people that, for instance, if you're working at a place and it's not a culture that fits into you or you fit into it, it's important to get out of that culture. So
Yeah.
I think it's very, very important to always figure out because think about it. You could be. I've worked at a UPS floor. That
Mhm.
was a different dynamic when we're loading those trucks. I've
Yeah.
worked at an entry level, maybe at Department of Transportation. If I get into my middle management position, so I've worked into leadership. So when you think about all those places, there are different dynamics, and it's important to understand your environment and how you want to fit into that.
Yeah, I love this. So I was on Twitter yesterday and I saw a tweet from a person who calls themselves, style to impact is kind of their username. And it's like style and substance can coexist. You don't have to wear the corporate grays or navy blue to be taken seriously. And
Yeah.
I was like, you know what? That's true. But again, when we were coming up, it was here's what you wear to an interview, here's what you wear to work, here's what you wear on casual Friday, here's, and it was down to that, the colors we wore, the height for women, the height of our heels, how we wear our hair. I go through this, I still go through this. Should I wear my hair natural or not, me, because of the way that I have been received, and or because of the way that became the focus of the conversation, like, oh my God, what did you do to your hair? Well, nothing. That's why I washed it and I did not straighten it. Like those type of conversations become, and I have always been, having been a recruiter, I've always wanted to not be the focus of whatever it
Yep.
is. Like now, like I went through this, like it's my show, but I'm talking about professionalism, so I wasn't going to wear a hoodie or a graphic tee today. Like
Yep.
really.
Yep.
And it's just those things that worry. But I was thinking about this and I said, you know what? I feel like every industry and kind of even sometimes down to the job or down to the team and like you say, the organizational
Yep.
culture, like I feel like
Yep.
everybody has uniforms. You don't gotta work, you don't
Yep.
have to be a doctor or a nurse.
Yep.
You know, the people in the hospital wear scrubs. You know,
Yep.
the administrative staff doesn't. Like that's how you tell who's who. You know, a construction site, you know that the construction workers are going to have on, you know, steel toe boots. They're going to wear Tims or something like that. You know, you know who the foreman is
Yep.
kind of based on, you know, maybe what they have on, or do they have the,
Yep.
you know, the walkie-talkie or the headphones. People that work in service industries, and not just like the McDonald's, the Burger Kings, the Taco Bells, but
Yep.
hotels. Like
Yes.
even my hairstylist, like certain, like I've been at different hair salons, you know, and not just, you know, in the Philadelphia area, here in Virginia, certain places, like even if they weren't a chain, even if they were, you know, a woman owned or a black owned business, like they wanted everybody to kind of look a certain way that represents
Yep.
their organization. So, you know, they're like, all the stylists wear black, like just wear all black.
Yep.
I don't care
Yep.
how it is. So like and even me, like being a recruiter, I started in third party recruiting, but we had a uniform, we had a dress code. Yeah,
Yep.
especially back then. Like we got some things taken off for the women. Like we're not wearing stockings in the summertime, sir. No, have you put them on? You know, but especially when it came to going to
Yeah.
business meetings, you
Yeah.
looked a certain. We had to look a
Yes.
certain way. We had to
Important.
present. We had to present a certain way. So that brings me to my next question, because, like I said, I have experienced these different things, but
Yeah.
you know, we've got
Yes.
things that are important that we're talking about that are becoming national conversations, especially you know surrounding the Crown Act and surrounding you know, like I said, like these things, how black women or how black people are presenting themselves in the way they speak, in you
Yeah.
know the way that they dress, in the way that they act, and those type of things. And I wonder, because I'm not a man, like do you feel like black men have a different standard of professionalism, or is it just that we just have more options? You know,
Yeah.
like you know.
That is a very interesting question.
Okay.
Question because it depends on the company. Is what
Okay.
I'll start with. And for me, for instance, I've been fortunate enough to be in different companies that I've not had to feel that there was a difference in standard. However, I mentor people
Yeah.
who share their experiences with me, and with listening to them, it does come to that environment. So I've seen people go in there and basically maybe everybody likes golf. This person doesn't like golf. How do they fit in?
Oh.
Maybe everybody likes going for wine tasting. They don't like wine tasting, or they play different things that maybe that person just doesn't
Yeah.
see. So I've seen those dynamics. And but what I will say is this: even still with me, I still figure out how I can be the best that it can be. Because for me, I feel like there always has to be a high bar. And so
Wow.
what I've just channeled into myself personally is that yes, even if there's still a standard or a standard, how do I become the best that there is, so that then I can raise the bar for myself and basically people that are watching me. So that is where I channel my energy. Where fortunately I've not been into one of these places that just felt like there was a standard, but I've talked to people who do, and I basically advise them of basically raising. And I also have the concept of always working for the next job, whether that
Okay.
job is within that company or whether it's in another company. It doesn't matter, because you are basically building a commercial for your next job. So you
I
basically
like
put in
that.
everything to basically make sure that, well, because if you were just working for somebody you just don't like, sure, you'd be like this thing, but you're working for that next job. So it doesn't matter at the end of the day, because you are just getting ready for whatever that next job would be. So that's how I've kind of used it. Some of people have found ways where, to me, 6 months later, got another job and moved on. Or maybe those people, things changed and they stayed in those jobs, but it put them at a different level where they got promoted and basically continue to grow their careers.
I love that. And I'm going to put this up because I think it's great advice. You're building a commercial for your next job, and we see that. You know, that's said different ways. I like it. I like this way. I think this will be, you know, as we have evolved, and like you said, the way that we even view what is and what is not. You know, a
Yeah.
standard of professionalism. So does our language, because it was always dress for the job you want, not the job you had. But
Yeah.
again, I think we've reduced again, we've reduced professionalism down to just the way that you dress. But I think for us specifically, I think for Black people, like I said, we are thinking about this. Like um, I've been in situations where, all things being equal, um, the white women could present in a way that was different from us, meaning
Hmm.
that, the white women didn't have any problem wearing leggings and sweaters to work. Black women were kind of like, that's kind of a problem. I know white women that would get their hair dyed, in what they would say are unnatural colors for us. That was, they're like bright red, purple hair. I always wanted purple hair. My mom said no. Bright red hair, purple hair, pink hair. They would wear, certain clothes. They would carry themselves in a way that they didn't even think about, that being an issue. But I know it is because I've seen it,
Yeah.
and working in the field that I have, I've seen it come to me. Like I had a vice president once come over to us, and he was, I worked in defense contracting, so there's things are a lot more rigid, we'll say,
Yeah.
in terms of uniformity, and had an excellent executive assistant who came to help while his regular one was out on leave. So they were only going to be there for a few months, like 3 or 4 months. And very, like I said, very well groomed, but they had very long fingernails. And sitting outside his office, they would make noise. And it wasn't like today where you see like folks that have, have jewels on them and different colors.
Yep.
Like they didn't do all of that. Like they just had long nails, painted them, but like I said, nothing that was like really eye catching, more so than the length of them and the noise that they made while they typed. And came to us as like, can you tell her to cut her nails? No. They're like, well, isn't there something in the policy that says you can't have nails that length? No. Well, what am I going to do about this? And I was like, well, what's the problem? And so they started to say things that weren't the problem. Well, they don't smell. So basically, they're saying they're not unkempt. It's not that this, but like I said, they just didn't like the way that this woman was presenting herself, or the woman was, out, operating outside of these bounds. And now I see even more like, white girls wear tips, or white women wear tips, and nails and stuff too. But I don't even think they think about that when they go to the nail salon. Whereas we are, we're like, okay, I can't wear these colors, I can't do this, or I have to change my nail color. And I think that some of us, especially for me, and for maybe for Xers and even folks older, like we thought about this, like certain colors. Like I wasn't allowed to wear red nail polish when I was a kid.
Yeah.
I have a line sister whose daughter, she's grown up now, but when we were young, she's like, red is a grown lady color.
So they come up with it.
Yeah, like there were things, but those I'm saying, like those are things that were passed down. And you talk about having gone to an HBCU. I work with a great number of intern programs, especially those that are specifically geared towards our community. Do you think in preparing the young folks for the workforce that we're putting too much emphasis, just the right amount, or not enough on professionalism in the sense like what it's really going to look like in the workforce? And I'm not talking about wearing the gray suit to the interview, wearing the blue suit to the interview, wearing a tie, making sure like wear a jacket, those type of things. Where do you think we're falling?
Yeah, I think it's more repositioning. As you said, the workplace is evolving, and it's very important to reposition. So what I mean by that is that, yes, because you have to get the basics of the clothes and stuff like that, but it's more than that. It's about how do you basically get ready to basically quickly identify mentors? How do you quickly identify basically how this career tracks that I want to get on? How do you basically go into this thing where you're going in there and you're not just showing up, I'm here. I'm going in there basically having quickly understanding, building a roadmap, a career roadmap of myself. Okay, this is what I want to do. This is what I want to try. If I don't like it, maybe I'll think about something. So it's kind of preparing them to go into that. And so I see it more of repurposing. I'll give you an example. I worked into IBM, out of our mistake, clueless on what am I going to do here. I just showed up there. They hired a bunch of people. We showed up in Rochester, and I remember IBM at the time was trying to drive diversity in Rochester. Rochester had less than 1% Black. Rochester,
Oh,
Minnesota,
wow.
had less than 1%. So they had recruited a lot of different students from different places, and all we all got together. And I remember something that IBM did. IBM flew all the Black executives. This was VP and above into Rochester to spend a weekend with us. I'll say that changed my career immensely, because once they came, they talked about that journey, the mistakes they had made, some of these they did not pay attention to, and they
Yeah.
talked through it. After that weekend with them, and kind of also see how they were doing well, they flew in at the IBM, flew them in a private jet, they flew in, took them back to the airport, and I kind of said, man, I want to figure out how I can basically, and then some of them stayed on mentoring us and stuff like that. And I think the power of mentorship is something that is undersold. It's going
Oh,
there,
okay.
making sure you're ready, but actually having the mentor and building a career plan and basically sticking with it and figuring out how you can grow. I was a software developer. I quickly after that said, you know what? I want to stay there. I moved into supply chain, into management, and basically grew my
Nice.
career after that.
I love that. I love that you're saying take the emphasis off of those like superficial things, because those things can easily be corrected.
Yep.
I've had to on the spot correct those things. I got more. I took the restrictions off of myself in terms of what I was wearing to work,
Yep.
especially if I didn't have an interview, I didn't have a meeting with someone. But I remember when I worked at BAE,
Yep.
I was supporting the executive staff, and my mentor was the first Black vice president of the cyber group, and like very important position, worked at headquarters. What I call the glass fishbowl, and called me one Friday. So that just tells you I was dressed very casually. Called me one Friday and said, "I want you to come to the office today." And I was already I was already at work. I was already at my location. And I had to go to the store. And it was early in the morning. So he's like, how long is it gonna take you to get here? So only thing open was like Target, Kohl's, Walmart. I went to Kohl's
Got some.
and I got something, that I could change into, that was what I consider a little bit more appropriate for going to meet with a vice president at
Yeah,
the company headquarters, because you never know who's going to be there. Like you never know
exactly.
you never know who you're going to meet. But I love that you were like, I want to get on the jet. I want to get out here. And again, like you said, thinking ahead and not just, like you said, am I wearing the gray suit today? Are my shoes shined, or whatever the case may be? Is my hair right? Because honestly, I think there's a lot. I think that we think about it more than everybody
Yeah.
else does.
Yeah, and I think it's kind of doing something intangible. I got an opportunity at Cisco to get to join what we call the executive preparation,
Yeah.
developing executive presence, and that was obviously for leadership. And that particular one was interesting. It was very, I mean, male, female, I mean, different races. But I remember going there talking about it started with even how you shook hands. I mean, how you shook hands with
Oh,
somebody. They started looking at that and giving you feedback on it. How you dressed. Okay, well, what did those pants have? Is it more crisp? Is it? How do you put it on your suit? And they started getting into some of this. Those were all things that I think you build on these nuggets. That one to me was an overkill, but I think there was enough learning out of it in terms of your postures on it. Basically, this way in meetings and how to basically watch the body language there to basically try to grow as an executive. That was a good experience, and I think that was more for people in leadership and beyond. But I would say that still applies in terms of looking for those opportunities and being mindful of it. And so I would say that professionalism, yes, the dressing and stuff like that should be table stakes and basic, but it's more about how you want to maneuver your career and grow. And like I said, working for that next job is a commercial for that next job. You got to keep it going, because if you do a terrible commercial, nobody's going to buy you for the next
hey, listen, I'm still waiting for my lunch interview. Like I still haven't had that. You know, I got all this preparation on how to, how to order, how to, how to, what knife and fork to use. That wasn't from professional training. That was from church training and my cotillion. But still, like I got all this,
Yep.
and when is somebody from a company taking me out to lunch for the interview so I can order the right way, so I can show them I know what to order.
It's coming.
This idea that the executives will eat a cheeseburger and a salad. I'm like, shut up. Like that's not true. So I do think we hold a lot of views that, as you said, that need to evolve. Any last thoughts before we move to the fun part? Any last thoughts on professionalism for us? Ooh, excuse me.
Bless you. I would say a couple of things. I would just say back to how I defined it originally in terms of communication, effective communication, and basically being effective on communication, being appropriate at work, and basically being productive. I think it comes down to figuring out what you want to do and building a career roadmap on it and sticking with that business and having a mentor to guide you through that journey. That's something I would say, that you put those things together, you use that in terms of driving professionalism. And yes, you have some bad days, but you at least have a roadmap, have a mentor, and basically be able to leverage that to grow.
I love it. All right. So every Trap Chat Live, I do like to leave folks with some things, and that's going to be no different for during Black History Month. So the first question I have for you is, what is the best career advice you never took?
I think entrepreneurship was something I never, basically in my early part when I started. I had done some entrepreneurial stuff, but kind of got into the corporate mix, and I did not see the power of that piece. I remember graduating out of Alabama State and getting a job at San Jose. I tell the story because I was living in Montgomery, Alabama. I was paying $450 for a 2-bedroom. They increased the rent to $475, and I was fighting at the office about why they increased the rent from $450 to $475. And I remember coming to San Jose with IBM, had gotten a nice signing bonus, spent it already, and basically showed up here, and the studio was $1,500. And I was like, my brain could not process it. I went to my manager and said that, hey, I can't do this. I can't live here. And 3 days later, he said, well, you spend a signing bonus that you need to return. You can't do this. And I remember 3 or 4 days later, he goes like, well, nobody wants to go to Rochester, Minnesota. So if you want to go, and I don't even know where Rochester, Minnesota was. But
can you tell me where it is in relation to like Minneapolis, St. Paul?
It's about an hour out. So it's an hour
closer
out,
to like north,
it's
south?
actually on the east of Minneapolis. Yeah.
Okay.
And it's not that far because I went to University of Minnesota for my master's. So you could drive back and forth. But I just remember going, and it's just these cornfields, and I got there. I had seen cold, but I did not realize that those thermostats in the car actually read -32 or -20.
Wow.
I did not even think those things went that low and stuff. So it was quite an experience, but I feel like some of these things are things that I'll say that you learn and as you go along.
Okay, so entrepreneurship, I like that. So you talked about some like major companies, and honestly, some companies that have provided a great deal of opportunity for folks who look like you and I.
Yes.
IBM, Cisco, them being global companies gives you an opportunity to, like you said, move to different places that fit better with your desire to not pay $1,500 for a bedroom.
Studio.
but even in those organizations, even in the ones that mean well, that have the ERGs, that do the the events, like you said, like that are focused on, bringing folks together and training and mentoring them, they still get some things wrong.
Yeah, yeah,
I'm saying this because it's Black
yeah,
History Month.
yeah.
It's only day 8, and I feel like we've had a year's worth of Black History Month faux pas already. Um,
Yeah.
without being too pointing to one particular organization, what would you say is like your top like Black History Month don't that you either experienced or firsthand or adjacently?
So it's been mixed. Obviously, every company has the big companies. Obviously, have a whole army of HR organization,
Yeah.
ERGs, and driving it. I think it's kind of maybe the early days at IBM.
Hmm.
Maybe I'll be specific as that. I think they were trying to probably push a lot harder on just diversity and maybe went overboard, had to do something over and over. So it got a little bit of an overkill. Versus, I mean, I think when I look back at some of like my current company, Pharma, and then I look at Level Data, where it's a smaller, more intimate
Yeah.
company size. I look at Pharma, they are very focused on trying to drive diversity. I see that push. I basically forming the DEI groups and basically actually paying people to actually be on DIA committee, which is a
That's
big deal.
awesome.
And
It
and I
is.
think for me that has been always if it's a site. So I see where I've been a big company who had all these resources that then I swing out to a company like Farmer where they basically put in that piece and looking at getting those feedback, looking at how they can grow those things. And so it gives you that perspective. And I mean, love working there. I mean, it's not been there less than a year, but I'll tell you that a lot of very purposeful, focused organization. That even
Okay.
I thought my previous where I was at Level Data, we had some of that, but I see it much more focused in a company like that.
Appreciate that, and I'm going to use that as your due to be purposeful, to
Yes.
pay your ERG members.
Yes.
Okay.
Yes.
All right. So we kind of touched on it a bit. You just talked about coming from Montgomery. You've been in Birmingham. I believe your wife is from Selma. Like you literally lived in Black history. Like you literally lived in Black history. Um, can you just share like one amazing experience from back then, from when you were maybe an undergrad or something, about like I would just love to know what it was like to be in Selma or in Montgomery or in Birmingham during Black History Month. Like that would be awesome.
So I'll share this. So I met George Wallace twice. And I met George Wallace in
Mm,
Montgomery, Alabama.
okay.
At the time, I did not know who George Wallace was. They actually
Oh.
did not have a history of who he was. And I remember they were having it was 80th birthday, some later birthday. And so they had asked for, I had some African clothes. They wanted to model it. So I gave it. Then every Black person come mad at me and say, why did I give these things? I said, who is this guy? Why is the big deal? So I actually had to go to the library and read for the first time who he was. And and basically one thing led to another. And I got an opportunity to chat a little bit with him because I was just curious after that because we understand he was very old at the time. And I would say that he talked about just in a short conversation, he thought about he had lost an election previously to somebody who had these racist stuff and just decided he was going to lose and he was going to do everything to win and just started focusing on it. And it wasn't until he got shot that he really kind of hit
I'm
home and
sorry.
started going back and doing it. And and it was just interesting to kind of listen to that piece. But I say the story to say that yes, we go and we see some of these extreme people, but I strongly believe that when you talk about Alabama, yes, I've been to Selma, I've been some of these things, but it was a journey, and I think you learn from all these things as you go
Yeah.
through life.
You know what? Thank you for sharing that story. That was very brave because I wouldn't tell anybody that I gave George Wallace um even a second glance. So And
That
if
is.
you are watching this and you don't know who George Wallace is, please go and do your research just as Quasi did. That's all I'm going to say about that. So again, your wife is from Selma. Do you or do you not eat grits?
I eat grits because my wife gives it to
Okay. The
me.
sugar go on grits. The
No.
what? Thank you. You are now official. You are official. You are official. Um, this is a only time I'm going to be able to ask this question because we have a historic Super Bowl coming up on Sunday, uh, and during Black History Month, with two black quarterbacks.
Yes.
A role that they said we couldn't, we weren't equipped to lead a team. We weren't intelligent enough and those type of things. Now, I don't watch football anymore. I stopped watching it um, the year that San Francisco, kind of blackballed Colin Kaepernick, and I have not watched it since. Used to be a diehard Eagles fan, which was just my luck because they won the Super Bowl the week
And they are in the Super Bowl
that
right
next
now.
year, and they are in the Super Bowl again. And I will not watch. But for those who are going to watch, and for you, I'm going to ask, who are you rooting for?
So I have to. I like both quarterbacks, but I do want to fly like an eagle. So
Yes.
I'm rooting for
Okay. All
so,
right. And the only other acceptable answer is I'm rooting is the Issa Rae, and I mean, yeah, is that her name? Yes.
yeah.
I'm rooting for everybody black.
Okay.
That's the
All
other
right.
acceptable answer. But congratulations on that. Um, Thinking about some of those days, the bad day or that day that you're not feeling 100%. You might be what I call below the line. Um, what is the song that you're going to put on to get you at least back level?
Yeah, so I think I'm a big jazz person, play a lot of
Ooh.
jazz music, and so
Okay.
that is often behind the scenes stuff. So I play that to basically get me going. Earl Clue, different people, jazz music is something that I do, and most of the time when I do maybe make a milestone, I always think about there's a song called Memories
Mm.
and and I do would play it, and it kind of walks you back on kind of a journey that took you there, and so I'll play
Okay. All right. I love it. Um, Anything else that you would like to share with our guests?
that. Yeah, what I would say is this: that I think it's a very important to basically work at the right place that meets your culture. I found that in pharma, I did find that in level data previously, and I've been fortunate to do that. I'm just say that being trapped in a place that you really doesn't meet your what you're looking for in terms of just the culture, because we spend so much time in our workplace and drive this professionalism as we talked about, it just becomes daunting, and I think life is too short to
Yeah.
spend so much time at places like that. So I encourage people to always strive for the best, work for that next job all the time so that position yourself well. And if that is not a place, you don't hang around there. But if you find a place that you love, you basically maximize it and stay there and basically
Yes.
go get it. So that's basically what I'll end up with, and just encourage people, and always have mentors with an S, mentors,
With an S.
mentors.
Always. Okay. Always. I'm going to write this down. Have mentors. Oh, I cannot spell.
That's okay. It's February. The year
Uh,
is moving too fast. I can't even believe it's already February. But
yeah, it is. It's the second week in February, and we've got 2 more weeks left. It's Valentine's Day. Oh, coming up. Do you celebrate?
yeah, I will celebrate, but I normally celebrate. I celebrate a non. Yeah.
So you just said that. So some Valentine's advice. I should you fall in love with your career with your job, or should you fall in love with your career roadmap?
I think it's the roadmap and basically staying on the roadmap. It's
Okay.
what I would say because to me it's getting you the particular job is just a means to this thing. But if you don't do a great job on the current job, you can get to the next one.
Okay.
That's the key.
All right. Well, thank you so much. I've really enjoyed talking to you, getting your perspective. I'm probably going to have nightmares about the George Wallace story, but I do forgive you. I do forgive you for it. I hope you got.
That's okay.
I hope you got your
That's
clothing.
okay.
I hope you got. I hope you got your things back that you
I will
donated.
get it back.
Please join us back here next week for another Black History Month Wednesday Wisdom edition of Trap Chat Live. We will have Tiffany Waddell Tate, the career Maven, talking a great deal about her career coaching services and just providing some insight on positioning yourself better and for your next job, and maybe even helping you to start putting some destinations on your career roadmap. So join us back here next week at a special time, 1 o'clock. PM, because I actually have a 2:30 webinar that I'm doing with a company. So join us for that. And then on Thursday, join me for another webinar. It's at 6 p.m. Eastern, sponsored by Cage Bird HR. And it's about performative diversity, equity, and inclusion. So you're not going to want to miss that. Thank you all for watching, and I'll see you next week. Bye-bye.